Okay, welcome everybody. Now we proceed with today's session. Am I clear to everybody? Hello?
Yes, you are clear, Sridhar. Go ahead.
Clear, okay. I welcome now we proceed with today's session. Am I clear to everybody? Hello?
Yes, you are clear, Sridhar. Go ahead.
Okay, yes, this problem is because of just a minute. Okay, I welcome all of you for this 127th talk of AIPMHE for this for the information of the speaker, Dr. Prabhakar. This is the 127th talk organized by this Association for Advancement of Pest Management. This is the 96th month, wherein without a gap, last 96 months, these many talks were organized for the benefit of faculty, students, and staff of. Earlier, it was only from IHR. Because of this, after this COVID pandemic, it was decided we can have it online so that whoever is interested, they can join in this one. That's how now we are online. With this brief introduction, I welcome all the participants this session. And before going further, I would like to thank the speaker for accepting our invitation and
These days, there is a lot to balance. But Grammarly ensures you communicate at your best, wherever you write.
Here,
Grammarly flags unclear sentences in real time, so your point is understood.
here, coming to a small introduction about the speaker. Those who are in the ICR system, many are already maybe knowing about the speaker. For those who joined outside this ICR institutes for their benefit, I'll give a brief introduction about the speaker. Dr. M. Prabhakar. He did his BSc Agriculture and MSc Agriculture from Andhra Agricultural University, S2I, located in Hyderabad, presently in Guntur, Andhra. And afterwards, in 1992 to 96, he completed a PhD from IRA campus. Then coming to the professional career, he joined as an ARS scientist in the year 1996 in horticulture division, that is NRC for grapes in Pune. After working there for 3 years, he joined in CRIDA. Since then, he has been in CRIDA, and now presently he is the principal scientist and national level project principal investigator for NICRA project. Many of you may be already knowing NICRA is one of the largest projects comprising of various subject matters of ICR, starting from crop science, horticulture science, NRM, extension, animal husbandry, everything is being included. And he also worked as head of the KVK under CRIDA for 3 years. And his field of specialization are remote sensing and GIS for crop health management, crop pest weather interactions, seasonal dynamics, and natural biological control of crop pests. For his credit, he had several publications, research publications, book chapters, technical bulletins, and brochures. And he is the life member of several entomology related and plant production related and agro-meteorological related societies. And he had a patent for insect collection devices. And if in the starting, he had SARC Fast Track Young Scientist Fellowship. And from Netherlands governments, in 2005, he had a fellow from NUFFIC. This is from the Netherlands government. And he is a fellow of Enterprise Society of India, Plant Production Association of India, Hyderabad, and he had several best practice awards. Coming to his specifically how he is associated and when he is giving a lecture on remote sensing, in entomology, entomologist as working under remote sensing are very few are there, and he has been working for this remote sensing, how it can be used for crop pest management for the last 10 to 12 years. Initially, he worked on pest forewarning models, and he started working on remote sensing in one of the ISRO-sponsored project in 2018. Since then, he has been continuing the remote sensing work for crop pest management. He was trained in National Remote Sensing Center located in Hyderabad, and also trained in Indian Institute of Remote Sensing located in Dehradun during 2011. And similarly, he was in the Oklahoma State University during 2009 as a visiting scholar. There also he had the Institute of Training and Remote Sensing. And above all, he established a laboratory in Hyderabad for the work of remote sensing, whatever the requirements are there.
दूध लेने जा रहे हैं किधर जा रहे थे हाँ ये भी एक
Go ahead. His presentation. Role of remote sensing in Prabhakar.
Thank you, Sridhar, for the kind introduction.
Simple things.
First, let me apologize for postponing this meeting twice. It was not in my control. So my apologies for that. Thanks, Sridhar, for inviting me to share experiences in this important field. So I will share my presentation.
40 pieces you can make, I think 2 pages you can make. Whether plain cake or like last time
I think if it is better, all of you is muted till the presentation is over. There's a lot of disturbance.
To be under mute. Okay. Please go ahead.
And also
My slides are visible, Sridhar?
Yeah, they are visible. Go ahead.
Yeah. The topic I have chosen is remote sensing and GIS applications in specifically crop protection field. So whatever I will be sharing the another 45 to 1 hour is mostly from my own experiences. It's not an exhaustive review of what has been done in India and abroad. My personal experience only I'm sharing with you. I have outlined my presentation in these broad areas, broad outline themes like a couple of slides, principles of remote sensing. As I understand, many of the participants, they are not introduced to this topic. So a couple of slides, I will have it. And then what kind of remote sensing platforms are available. So that also will deal. Then some certain case studies. It's in 3 different aspects, based on ground-based studies, space-borne studies, and also airborne studies. Whatever we have done, and that I will tell you. And that is also, I will also like to highlight the future of this technology, specifically to crop protection. Thank you. Then, coming to the principles, all remote sensing applications work with natural light. That is the sunlight. When sunlight falls on any object, whether it could be plant, rock, or any object on this earth, there are 3 possible reactions can happen. One is part of the energy is absorbed by the object itself. Second, part of the energy is transmitted through the object, if it is opaque or transparent. Majority of the energy is reflected back. So absorption, transmission, reflectance. These 3 possible reactions. In remote sensing applications, we measure the reflected energy because the amount of radiation reflected from any object is quantitatively and qualitatively will give you a lot of information. So this is the principle behind the remote sensing applications. Now, how reflectance data is recorded? One is using ground's radiometer. It's called as scanning radiometers. The satellites or in the aircrafts, we have sensors, which is imaging type of recording the reflectance. So both the studies to interpret the satellite borne images, we need to characterize the reflectance from ground based studies. So that's why ground based, we'll start with the ground based studies and then proceed to space borne and then airborne. Now, as I said, the different platforms. One is ground based, then air based. Air based could be a small aircraft, or also it can be drone. Then space borne, mostly satellites, which is flying around 700 kilometers above the sky.
ಟೆಸ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಿ
Now, ground based. I request Dr. Krishna Reddy to please mute. Hello.
Hi.
Sridhar, host can mute. Sridhar.
Yeah. I'll do that.
So this ground based, it could be, as I said, handheld or a cherry picker. You will mount the sensor or the imager onto the cherry picker, then take the observations. Airborne, as I said, it could be a small helicopter or aircraft, and UAVs or drones. So these are the major, the recent developments. Spaceborne, mostly from different kinds of satellites. It could be Indian satellites or any other foreign-based satellites. So these are the platforms of remote sensing data. Now, before going to the actual subject, I would like to start with this slide. Any damage caused by a pest or diseases can be broadly classified into 4 categories. One is defoliator, mostly by caterpillar pests. Sap-sucking insects, which will suck the sap and also the pigments from the plants and other parts of the plant. Pigment reducers, mostly diseases, and cell-damaging insects. It could be thrips or some other lacerating type of insects. It damages the cell structure of the plants. So defoliators, sapsuckers, pigments, and cell-damaging insects will have different kinds of approaches when you want to use remote sensing platform. Now, this is the typical reflectance spectra when you record it using a ground radiometer. You can see different peaks and valleys in this graph. We can broadly divide this reflectance spectra into 3 major areas. First one is visible up to 750 nanometers. Then up to 1250 nanometers we call NIR, near infrared. Beyond that, shortwave infrared. Every region of this will have a specific purpose and significance, which we'll see now. Visible, mostly the peaks, absorption peaks, we say, the valleys, what you see here, 2 valleys, they indicate the pigments. It could be chlorophyll or anthocyan, any pigment, they'll be absorbed in this region, visible region. NIR region comes to cell structure. If there is any damage in cell structure, there will be change in the reflectance in this particular region of the spectra. Beyond that, mostly water absorption bands are there. So keep seeing the previous slide, that based on the nature of damage, you have to interpret the reflectance spectra in such a way that, because as a specialist, as an entomologist or pathologist, you know the nature of damage. So based on that, you can interpret the reflectance spectra. Then otherwise, you cannot interpret or you cannot find out the reason behind the changes in this reflectance spectra. Now, there are 2 different types of measuring reflectance spectra. One is hyperspectral, which records the entire range of up to visible region up to 2005 nanometers, and it will have a high number of bands. It could be around 500 or more than 1,000 bands in hyperspectral radiometers. Multispectral, 6 to 7, sometimes some companies they will go up to 16 bands, but the bandwidth is very broad. But nevertheless, they are also useful in remote sensing applications in crop protection. Now, how we will record the reflectance spectra? There are different means by which we do it. One is the field experiments. We conduct field experiments, making differential pest or disease infestation by manipulating your pesticide or fungicide sprays or adjusting the different dates of sowing. You can create it in the field. Then you will record the observations in the field. The other way is you have it on the pots, multiply the pest, release no number of insects, and produce the damage. Ultimately, the radiometer, it measures the symptoms based on the symptoms, not based on the insects per se. So whatever symptoms appear on the plant, that will be captured by the radiometer. The other way of doing it is conducting field surveys, random surveys. Then if you find some diseases, you can record it. That also will be very, because everything you cannot create in your lab or in the research farms. So generally we conduct every fortnight one survey in and around Hyderabad and record the reflectance of different pests and diseases. And sometimes if it is a nutrient deficiency also, we'll record it. So this is another way of doing recording a reflectance spectra. Now, coming to the examples. First example I'll take with cotton leafhopper. You see the bottom, the leftmost image is the healthy one. The rightmost is severely damaged leafhopper symptom. Now, if you record reflectance, this is how it looks like. The green line is the healthy one. The bottom red line is the diseased one. So you can find the difference in all the regions, visible, NIR, and also SWIR. That means this pest should have caused damage to pigments, also the cell structure, and also water content, relative water content. So, so from here onwards, we'll take the lead and then we'll try to characterize these sensitive bands, because this data will have thousands of bands. We don't need all the bands for analysis purpose. So how we'll do it? So before that, one more example. Cotton mealybug. So here you can see again the differences between leafhopper and mealybug. The spectral difference are quite different. So this is how we can make use of the hyperspectral remote sensing to differentiate different pests within the same crop, which is not possible in multispectral remote sensing. Now, as I said, we will identify certain sensitive bands in the entire spectral region. For example, I have given two examples here. Leafhopper, we have identified 6 to 7 sensitive bands, which is in the top graph. Those bands, we used it in different combinations. We will normalize those values using different combinations. Then we arrive at the most sensitive index. It's called spectral vegetation index. Once it is fixed, it will be it has to be tested with the information already. If somebody has done it somewhere else in the country or somewhere else in the world, you have to validate it. If it works better than that, the already available index, then only you can accept it. Now, the same thing we did. We said mealybug index, 3 different combinations we found. This is working better than the already existing indices from 1 to 6, what I'm showing here. Then we did validation with the independent data sets. You can see here the classification accuracies for grade 1, it's 70% and above, healthy 50%, because what it's doing is from some of the healthy plants, it's classifying as grade 1. It's never is not an issue, but what we find, this much accuracy is good enough. And again, grade 3 and grade 4, the severe categories, they're also overlapping. So 3 and 4 we can take together, healthy and grade 1 we can take together, and we can classify the infestation levels. So what you see is the mealybug 3 index. Out of 3 different combinations we tried, this particular index is working well. So we finalize those index for the mealybug. Now I'm giving some other examples, some examples from plant diseases. Here you see groundnut leaf spot. You can see the image, different gradients, and then the bottom image, the spectral reflectance curves for this particular disease. So it's altogether different compared to the pests, because the nature of damage it causes is quite different. And then black gram mosaic virus, see viral disease also, mostly the pigmentation losses, which is well captured in the visible region. There is not much difference in NIR region and also far infrared region. So for black gram mosaic virus, we take the data mostly from visible region. Whereas for leaf spot disease, NIR and then shortwave infrared region we'll take. And then, as I said, for black gram mosaic virus, we try to identify some sensitive bands. Of all the more than 1,000 bands, we identified only 2 bands, 510 and 669 nanometer bands. That we made a simple ratio, not like mealybug is very complicated index. Now we arrived at a very simple index for black gram mosaic virus. It's working well. And then GroundNet TRIPS, our work, we could able to identify 5 sensitive bands for identifying GroundNet TRIPS. And then for green gram powdery mildew, and we have also worked on green gram leaf spot, and then nutrient deficiency, because in a crop you will get all these symptoms in the field. So that also we could able to capture in one of the farmers' fields, and we identified sensitive bands for the deficiency symptoms also in GroundNet. And then in chili, for example, I have taken the chili because we have got the infestation in different fields for different pests and diseases. In this case, there's a powdery mildew, there's a leaf curl virus, and also thrips. And we have identified the sensitive bands, as you see in this graph, blue color, the powdery mildew. The bands are different from thrips and leaf curls. So again, I am emphasizing this is possible in hyperspectral remote sensing, where your bandwidth is very, very narrow, 2 to 5 nanometer width. Broadband, it may not be possible to identify different damages in the same crop. Now, this whatever groundwork we have done it, you could able to successfully publish it in some of the good journals. Now, moving to the next part, the space-bound remote sensing. Satellite data also we have some examples I'll share with you. You are aware the space crafts, they'll be moving around from somewhere between 700 to 1,000 kilometers above that surface. And from there, it takes images. Those images, we are using it for our analysis. Just to briefly, in this slide, the history of the multispectral satellites in the world. It started with United States in 1970s. It's called Landsat. There are a series of Landsat satellites, and other AVHR, this is the Indian satellite, and SPOT, European satellites. There are a series of satellites, and then Indian satellites also will have in the subsequent slides. The latest one we called as here, you can see it here. Some of the examples also, we have used almost most of these products from Landsat to QuickBird we have not used. Other things, Indian satellites also we have used. And then the spatial distribution, because for applications like pests and diseases, the resolution, we call it as spatial resolution, is very, very important. So Landsat, I have given here the number of pixels. 1 pixel is 80 meters. These are quite big. Landsat 4.5 is better, 30 meters. And then 7 is still 30. And Sentinel as products is coming recently for the past 4 or 5 years. They have a better resolution compared to the previous satellites. It's 10 meters, which is very useful for our crop protection applications. So this what you see here, the top, they're all publicly available, public funded satellite data products. Most of them are available free of cost. Now certain satellite data products, which we have to pay for it, but they will come with high resolution. What you can see here, it's up to less than 1 meter. So SkySat, but the product, the cost is a bit on a higher side. So depending on your need and the requirement, we can procure it. Now coming to Indian satellites, this is the image for all the satellites, communication satellites and imaging satellites, everything I have just presented here. For agriculture purpose, specific to plant protection, we use a Cartosat and ResourceSat. Mostly ResourceSat, Cartosat to the lesser extent. Other satellites are mostly for communication and other defense purposes, which we're not interested. And the RISAT, of course, for that applications, at least I have not worked, but many other people in NRSA and Indian Institute of Remote Sensing, they are working on it. Now, here you can see how the image, the sensors look like, in the which is mounted in the satellites look like. So there are 4 sensors. It's called broadband sensors, LIS3 sensors. As I said, there when I said broadband, the bandwidth could be around some 50 to 100 nanometers. In LIS3 Indian satellite, we have 4 bands: green, red, NIR, shortwave, infrared. So now, how when you buy the product from NRSC, This is how it looked like. When you see the red, independently these satellite data products, they look in black and white. So once you overlay it one over the other, it's called false color composite, the bottom one. So mostly we use the false color composite for our further analysis. Now, again, coming back to the reflectance part, I have taken example of different crops here. It could be same for different pests and diseases also, whichever data you have. You can see the different crops, the reflectance spectra is totally different from different regions. This is based on ground-based, our handheld radiometers. Now, when we acquire satellite image, it will not record the data in the entire region. So what it exactly sees from the sky is these 4 bands. I said green, red, NIR, and then shortwave infrared. Nevertheless, they capture the major elements of which is required for agriculture in general and plant production in particular. Visible, it's captured in the exact location where it is required. NIR region also is better compared to the other very broad bands like Landsat. This is better. SWIR also, it's able to capture the moisture bands. Now, there are certain preconditions if you want to use it for particularly for crop protection, the satellite data products. One is the area should be contiguous, or at least if not contiguous, the field should be relatively large fields. Availability of cloud-free data is an issue, which we have to ensure before taking up any such kind of work. And we need to have the damage parts, sufficiently large patches of damage, more than 30 meters, not square, it's a square meters. Less than that, probably it's not possible to detect using the multispectral satellite data. I am referring to Landsat, Indian satellites. Then the final one is to interpret any kind of the satellite data products, you need to undertake extensive ground truthing. Unless you visit those fields, probably it's not possible. Your interpretation may be wrong. And so without ground truth data collection, at least in our experience, we say at least for each satellite data product, 30 is minimum data sets required to analyze. So these are the requisites to use satellite data. And we have used, as I said, ResourceSat, Landsat, Sentinel. Some case studies we'll see. Cotton, we have millibug examples, rice leaf page, leaf folder, groundnut leaf miner we have. Now we'll take cotton millibug damage. This we have done it in Warangal district, a village called Shayampet. This is what you see in this screen is a Google Earth image. The white patch, what you see is a big tank, irrigation tank. The village of our interest is I just marked it in the white arrow. Then when we procure the satellite data product for this particular region, it looks like this, Cartosat image. Same thing for IRS list 4 image, false color composite, it looks like this. Then you merge both Cartosat and multispectral list 4 because we are trying to enhance the resolution from 25 meters to somewhere between 10 to 12 meters. So we have merged these 2 products, and then this is our interest. I have marked red boundary. This is our area of interest, the village, the Shayampet village where we work. So we excluded other part of the data from this image. Then we have tried to see what we can do with this satellite data product. First thing is, because we enhanced the resolution using Cartosat, we could be able to see the individual field boundaries. You can see very well clearly in this image. Individual field boundaries, the size of the field is somewhere between 0.5 acres to 5 acre sizes. Even 0.5 acres also could be able to clearly see in this satellite data product. Secondly, the crops, what kind of crops they grow. We have classified it to turmeric, cotton, chili, then rice, then fallow crop. All this can be easily identified. So our interest is only cotton. Now we have masked out other crops. Then this is the kind of damage in the field on the ground. The millibug damage, a huge outbreak in 2009 December period. This was we have undertaken this survey. The entire village, I can say almost 30 to 25% of the area is infested with millibug damage. Then we take advantage of the situation, collected extensive ground truth data, in addition to spectral data, also chlorophyll data, leaf area, all these things we have recorded. Then this is the analyzed image of this particular village in the Warangal district. So we have conducted ground truth from 58 locations, and as per our analysis, the pest affected area is around 39%. However, around 33% of this what so-called pest affected area is not actually pest affected; is dried field. There is a bit of overlapping. However, the infested area in terms of acreage that we will be able to estimate is around 230 acres, and healthy more than 700 acres are there. So this kind of products within 10 days time from the time of acquiring the image, 3-4 days we conduct ground truth data, and then we analysis. It will take 4 to 5 days. So at the end of 10th or 12th day, you can give such kind of products for the policymakers. And the same village, we were able to track the changes, the pest, how it's increasing or decreasing severity. This here we can see October 19th, left side top corner, then bottom 19th September, almost 1 month, and 1st December. All the red color patches are the areas which got severely damaged. Compared to October 19th, you can see which field is going towards severe, very severe. Like that, we can identify, tag each field and monitor it. Second example, groundnut leaf miner is a major problem in Anantapur district. Almost every 3 years there will be outbreak. We took this study in 11 and 12. This is the actual field situation. The entire crop dries up like a burnt appearance. So then this is the Google Earth image of the 2 villages where we have conducted these trials. The same thing we'll see how it look like in the satellite data point. So this is the satellite, same villages in the false color composite of NRSC supplied images. The villages look like this. Then we further analyzed like cotton mealybug. We could able to identify the intensities of leaf miner in these 2 villages, including the number of fields and also in terms of acreage. So it's possible because luckily we got satellite data, and we went there and conducted ground truth data. The third example is groundnut leaf folder. It is in Kaital district, Haryana, 2012. There's outbreak. You can see the damage, field damage. You can see several patches, such kind of damage. This is outbreak, October, November months. So we collected extensive ground truth data, interacted with farmers, more than I think 160, 170 spots we have recorded this. And then we had a problem there, like the crop was, the phenological stage was not uniform. There are certain healthy patches. You can see the top picture, leaf folder damage fields. And then also there are fields matured, early sown rice adjacent to the healthy rice. And again, harvested fields are also there. So this was a challenge, and then we saw whether we can distinguish these phenological stages. This is the Google Earth image of this particular Tehsil, Karnal district, satellite data product of the same location. This is the classified image. So we would able to clearly distinguish all the 5 categories. Crop wise, sugarcane, of course, very easy. Within the rice, healthy, harvested, matured, and leaf folder damage. The red one is leaf folder damage. You can see the extent of the damage geographically and across the village. So then we tried to estimate the in terms of percentage. It was around 27% of the fields in this particular location. They're all damaged. Other crops also were able to arrive at. Fourth, chili thrips there was outbreak in 2016 in our adjacent district to Hyderabad, Kurnool and Mahbubnagar. So we conducted the survey, and you can see the classified images. All the red color patches are the chili damaged fields, and how the disease is progressing between 2 periods, January 10th and after 1 month, 9th February. The progress in the severity of the disease also we can map. And then the same chili thrips, the spectral reflectance. The top one is the from ground truth data, how it looks like, and the bottom graph from the satellites. So this, I just wanted to show you the changes, how it look like from satellite spectra and ground-based spectra. So these are the same one. Now the latest one is fall army one. Last year there was a severe outbreak in and around Hyderabad, 2018, and there was almost every alternate field is infested. So we conducted field survey in the 2 states, adjacent states, AP and Telangana, and the spectral characters changes in the crop. The crop is mostly sorghum because that particular area is dominated by sorghum crop. Maize is less, but the entire damage for both the crops are equally damaged. But majority of the fields are sorghum. So in this paper, we discussed only sorghum because now the maize area, fields are very less. You can see the study area, the ground truth data collection, and how the spectrally they are separate. We used higher resolution satellite data, Sentinel data, which is 10 meter resolution, which is better than the Indian satellite data. And you can see in this graph the leaf area of different infestation levels: healthy, low infestation, severe infestation. This is the mean data across the fields. As I said, more than 120 fields, I think. This is possible. If not yield, leaf area index, because this the defoliator, the amount of defoliation is captured, and the same thing is shown in terms of maps, GIS maps. So field wise, these are all the different fields where we have seen. Since we have high resolution satellite data, Sentinel data, you can individual fields also you can see. Now that's about the space-borne part. Now the next level is the airborne. As I said, airborne, you can have aircrafts. You can mount your sensors over the on the aircraft and run the aircraft, collect the data, then analyze the data. The other way is drones, which you might be hearing about a lot about these drones, or we also call it as unmanned aerial vehicles. Both are categorized as airborne sensors. Advantage with this particular airborne remote sensing is we need not depend on cloud. Whereas for satellites, if there's a cloud, you will miss the data. But airborne, it's possible, provided you hire an aircraft, run it when there is a disease, because the time is very crucial. If you miss that 1 week or 10 days time when there is a outbreak or going to be outbreak, it may not be much value for the decision takers. We have some work with with the help of NRSA. NASA, they have flown an aircraft over our Indian terrain. We were involved in this project. We have been allotted 2 districts, Mahabubnagar and Nagar Karnool, where we have collected the data when the aircraft was flown. This aircraft was flown in 2 phases, 2015 and 2016. And it is a hyperspectral data, not like a multispectral. It has more than 200 data sets. Resolution is 4 meters, exceedingly good. Only problem is it was flown in the month of December, January, where most of the kharif crops were harvested. We have certain vegetable crops like chili or certain perennial trees and rice. Rice, we have plenty of rabi rice. But in rice, we could not get any pests or disease during this particular time, so we could not able to do much. Whereas this is the ground truth data when the aircraft was flown. They have given us the dates. So the day aircraft is flown, we were there in the field for 3 days. We collected the entire region, whichever ground-based observations we would like to take. We have done it along with spectral data, the chlorophyll data, biomass, leaf area index, photosynthetically active radiation. All these things are required to interpret the data. So we have collected it. Then I have because since this, as I said, December, January, we don't have much for pests and diseases. One village we got this chili. There was a chili thrip damage, powdery mildew damage. Very beautifully could able to classify because it's a 4 meter resolution. These two diseases within the field you can identify which is chili damaged plants and powdery mildew infested plants. So the classification accuracy is good, and this is the application of hyperspectral airborne remote sensing. Then we have one citrus orchard, the huge orchard. more than 150, 160 acres orchard. A part of it is neglected, not managed properly. So we collected data individually. We have randomly surveyed. There are different categories of reasons for the unhealthy plants. It could be the parasite cuscuta, or it could be root borer, because we don't have time to dig out and find out the pest. It's drying. So we recorded it's drying. Then also there was some nutrient deficiency on certain citrus plants. All these things we have collected. Then we classified, just to classify healthy and unhealthy plants using different indices. So you can see the top right hand NDWI, it works well. The classification accuracy is better than the other two indices. So this is another example of using airborne hyperspectral data. Third example in the same data set, there was a not to the large extent, few fields, I can say, they were infested with mosaic, chickpea mosaic. So we could able to see that they are spectrally they are different, and the area also you could able to classify easily. So these are the three examples I could have able to do it. We are yet to publish this data. We are trying to analyze the data. But meanwhile, there are several applications of using airborne data. I just quoted one example. There were some reviews and applications because of late, this is the area is finding a lot of applications. And second part of airborne is unmanned aerial vehicles or drones. I will in a couple of 3 or 4 slides. I will tell you. 4 or 5 years back, there was a company, Abiotics from Germany. He visited CRIDA and he demonstrated the drone application in our campus. So this is the only experience we have. This is how it looks like. You can see the camera in the bottom. It's not a multispectral camera, it's a visible camera, like in an ordinary camera. Just to demonstrate, this is our CRIDA field, and the flight path you can see, and the crops also you can easily see. The height was somewhere between 50 to 60 meters height. So he just demonstrated. After that, we could not do much because of we don't have these drones with us. But I see if you just Google it, there are plenty of drone-based applications in agriculture. I'm not discussing with other parts of the applications of drones. In agriculture, I find that these are all Indian examples. I am just showing here. There are plenty, applications are plenty. But as far as research part, we are still, we need to do a lot use of these drones. You just Google it, availability of drones, IndiaMart, you will get this. The morning I was just looking at it, around 8 to 10 lakhs with the entire battery and other software. Of course, sensors will not be there. This is not very expensive compared to 5 years back. It was more than 15 lakhs, now half the price. It's available on the net. But the issue is the usage, the regulations that we will show in a couple of slides. Certain states where we attend some of the meetings, Telangana and Karnataka, they have already initiated this. The use of drones for spraying of pesticides. They're conducting trainings, and they're even farmers also, they're creating awareness. The idea was to make these drones as a part of a customizing center in the village. That means there will be one drone for each village, which will cater the needs of the entire village. That was the idea of the state governments. You see here the image of with the tank. This is from Punjab. People were trying it again for the pesticide spray. And there was a lot of news whether to use it or not to use it. Government of India, Ministry of Agriculture has given this news clarification because Government of Telangana, other states, they're going ahead. So Ministry of Agriculture, they said pesticide spraying on farm using drones is illegal. This is in month of February. However, recently, 15 days back, July 15, there was a notification from Ministry of Agriculture easing all the hurdles. I just highlighted only 4 points, which were making a hurdle to take this use of drones in agriculture, but they have now eased it. They said there will be a digital sky platform, it's an online platform, where those whoever want to use it, they have to register with all the details of the drone, what you are using, and when you are going to fly, along with the unique number of the drone. all these things you have to feed it, and you will get permission online instantly if there is no problem, if there is no issues. If there is an issue to be taken decision by the concerned officer, it may take, they said, maximum 3 days. And then if it is for R&D, no pilot license is required. For other commercial users, drone pilot license is required. And no flight permission if the height is less than 400 feet. And it is in green zone. There are different zones: green, red, yellow zone. Green means it is not near to any airport or any other sensitive establishment like defense or air force. Those zones are called green zones. That they will notify in future. They said when it is a green zone less than 400 feet, we can no permissions are required. And there is a training requirements, and they're also formulating, because this is going to come in a large, big way. This forcing all these things very proactively. Ministry of Agriculture, they have drafted this. This is only a draft for SOP. It has to, now it's in public domain. They're asking for comments. Maybe after 1.5 months, they will make it as a law or SOP, approved SOP. Maybe we have to wait for another 1.5 to 2 months. You can just Google it. Is available in Ministry of website, DPPQ website. What we have seen with drones so far in the 4 or 5 previous slides are use of drones for pesticide spray. What has not been done or has to be done, because pesticide spray is, your industry is involved. The pesticide companies, they are interested more than us. They are working out the formulation, because when the big issue asked to us, the reduction in spray fluid. And a traditional spray fluid, around 200-250 liters of water per acre, you are bringing out around 10 to 15 liters of water. So you need to have a special formulation, and then the coverage, how it's for different pests, it needs different kinds of coverage on the foliar, upper surface, lower surface. Some pests like BPH at the bottom of the stems. All these things are being studied before making recommendations. What I mean to say is, not much work done is using imaging, like where the pest is causing damage and how it's going to cause damage in another week or 10 days time. So it requires a imager to be mounted on the drone, like what we did in the previous examples of aircraft or satellite. A mini imager, it could be multispectral or hyperspectral. And then it needs a lot of research inputs. First, you have to do it field experiment, cut the spectral data as I showed in the my first slides, then try to interpret how that can be distinguished using the drone-based image. So this is a gap. I think I am foreseeing this. There will be a lot of research in the years to come in this area. Now, some of the foreign examples, this morning I was just Googling it. They have gone for application of tabs. You would fly your drone, and it will show you real time whether it's a pest or it's a moisture deficit, or based on the certain algorithms already built in the software. It will show you which patch of the field is pest infested, moisture deficit, or otherwise healthy plants. So real-time information you will get. They will generate a map, then they will mount it to a tractor or any aircraft, or then it will go for spray. So that's the level of application of these drones. Now the last part is the using GIS. Dr. Vanilla is here. This is one project where it's called CropSap, funded by government of Maharashtra, where we extensively use the GIS-based applications. These are real-time data collection, and then generating the maps of the severity of at taluk level, because it's a network project. CREDA is only one part of it. NCIPM is the lead center, and there are university staff and the department people. They're also involved here. The field staff who collected the data on real time, they load it on the web. It will be quality checked. Then we at CREDA, we receive the data. Then we download the weather data from different sources. Then try to generate maps, seeing the relationship between different weather parameters. Could be temperature or rainfall, or it could be moisture adequacy index. How the pest is behaving this week compared to the previous week. So these maps are on real time. Maybe this week's map, next week we are providing to the department people, so that they can take decisions on the ground, which part of the tehsil is going towards severe. And finally, we have a website for all this remote sensing GIS applications. Whatever we have done it, we have put it in the form of a crop pest DASs. In the CRIDA website, you can have this a tab, separate tab. So these maps, you can see it in real time. Last week, if you want to see, we have categorized in different crops. For example, you select a maize crop, then which pest you want to see, or a year, a period, and then a week. It is 24th, 25th week. But a constant map you can see on the screen. So in another 4 or 5 slides, the future of this geospatial technology, as I visualize, I will just share with you. As I said, every field, it will be geo-referenced. Already it is being done in Telangana, not for agriculture purpose, for revenue purpose. They are digitizing every field now. But whether they are going to share those digital information to the research organizations like us, we have to wait and see. Once it is done, it's then other applications that makes us very easy. So I think already other developing countries, digitized maps already available in the web, free of cost. You just give lat long, you will find the boundaries, field boundaries with all geotagged information. India is yet to come. And once it is done, this kind of classified images, you will get it regarding the health of the plant. If it is a pest, those maps will be mounted into this sensor-based sprayers, booms, they call booms. Then this is called a precision spraying. Or whenever there is a damage, then only the nozzles will open. Other plants, when it moves, when there is a healthy plant, nozzles will close. So this kind of applications already is there in the United States and Europe. India, probably it may come in years to come. And startups. This is one example I saw in Africa using drones in agriculture. There are startups, is a private initiative. They are providing the service on cost basis. Probably India also will see such kind of developments, because government of India now is giving a lot of importance to the startups and also so-called the FPOs. Then once it is done, probably there could be many startups, they can find these kind of applications. So with your mobile, once it is done in your mobile, there could be some application. You can see the, once you have the image, then you can see which part of the field is suffering for what, mice or pest or diseases. That also is possible. All these things might follow up once you have this imaging process in place. Now, to do this kind of work, I'm just sharing with you what kind of facilities you need. Here you see the radiometer is one important thing, major one. If you have money, go for hyperspectral radiometer. Of course, it's very expensive, around 65 to 75 lakhs it costs. But it's worth buying it. At least ICR institutes, they should have this. Multispectral radiometers, okay, around 7 to 10 lakhs. This also be useful. If you don't have budget, you can go for multispectral. GPS, differential GPS, high resolution GPS costing around 50,000 to 1 lakh rupees. Now cost has come down. Other gadgets for ground truthing, like chlorophyll, a SPAD meter or canopy analyzer, IR thermometer. If you have it, you can publish your results. Otherwise, simply by taking the spectral data, you cannot publish the results. Then we have a setup in our laboratory to simulate the natural situations. We have artificial bulb, which is the energy is almost equivalent to sunlight. So whichever samples we have, we put it here. We'll record the spectral data, and also we have other integrated sphere. It means more minute details, like if you want to see the trichome density, the stomatal density, the size of the stomata, that kind of studies, more basic studies. That facility also we have, and of course for soil reflectance, we have a separate accessory for the existing hyperspectral radiometer. Software, you need this ArcGIS. This is GIS software, imaging software. It could be ERDAS or ENVI. One of these will do. Unless if you don't have it, it will be you can handle your data. Otherwise, you cannot handle your data. So finally, to conclude, I think probably you might have probably if I'm successful in convincing you that remote sensing provides a non-destructive, non-invasive estimation of crop damage. So that is one major advantage. and it will give you a synoptic view. With one image, the entire village will have a view. So that's another advantage, and best suited for area-wide approach. Instead of individuals, if you are for entire district or village, one image will do for the entire location. Is it possible to detect the stress before visible symptoms appear? It's again for hyperspectral, not with multispectral. This is possible before the visible symptoms appear. To some extent, we can distinguish this is that the plant is not healthy. To that extent, we can able to do it, and it will help your guided field scouting. Otherwise, the regular field scouting, they will go in a random. They will take a random route. Whatever they find it, they will record, and they will go to the top level, to the district officer or state officer, reporting the pest incidents. If you have such kind of image based, we can guide those scouts. Instead of going for the entire region, you can say, look, this is the village, this is the field, go there and see. If it is there, you report. So guided scouting is one advantage. Cost effective, I can say earlier, 5-10 years back, it was very expensive, remote sensing data. Now most of things are available free of cost. So what data products we have seen for fall armyworm, they're all free of cost. We did not buy it. All said and done, the hyperspectral airborne, this is the future, because now, as I said, the cloud is the major problem, and then the revisit time. That means satellite taking the image on the same location, it is still around 25 to 35 days. So this is a very big gap for applications like pest and disease management. So this is not possible with satellite data, but hyperspectral airborne, you can fly whenever you want. Limitations, manpower, that is possible if you have to undergo certain special trainings. And the multiple stresses, some cases, multispectral data, there's a multiple stress. You cannot distinguish. That's another issue. As I said, cloud-free data is another problem. So this is what I would like to say. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Prabhakar, for your excellent presentation in the simplest way possible, starting from remote sensing to this drones, latest rules released. Same time last year, there was a lot of objections for use of drones, but now it is too much liberalized, particularly for using in agriculture. There may be some concerns in border. There they are taking strict measures to stop misuse of that thing. With this, I wholeheartedly thank you for accepting and giving a wonderful lecture on remote sensing and its application in crop pest management from our Association for Advancement of Pest Management in Horticultural Ecosystems. This year, if you remember, all of you, last year is being the International Year of Plant Health 2020, and at IHR we celebrated in December. At international level, they are closing that International Area of Plant Health this month. We will take this lecture as the conclusion part from our association to mark the observation of International Year of Plant Health. With that, I thank you very much. And now the topic is open for discussion. Any one of you can start asking any clarifications or your experience you can share. I welcome all of you to come forward and for clarifications. Who will ask first? Anybody who want to ask, just kindly unmute yourself and pose your questions. I will start from my side. I have small clarification like drones and remote sensing. How best you can connect them, or we have to treat them independent? How to treat these entities, remote sensing as well as drones? That is my doubt. Hello. Okay. Hello. 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 Just come here. Let's, hello. People can't able to unmute. I have not used anything to mute.
Yeah, Sridhar,
Yeah.
can you
Is
hear
it
me
okay?
now? Yeah,
Yeah,
now
yeah.
it's okay. Yeah.
Okay, na?
Yeah.
Others, can you unmute yourself?
Hey, can you please repeat your question? What is the question?
My question is how best you can compare this remote sensing and use of drones, which is in a short range, and remote sensing. How best you can make use of together? They can be made use of. They have to be treated as very independent.
As I said, application of drones are many in agriculture also. The applications what we see in my earlier slides for spraying pesticides, it's not a remote sensing actually. They're just using it as instead of going for traditional spraying, they're using drones to complete the task within a short time with less pesticide spray. For if you want to use drones for remote sensing, you need to have a sensor. Mount it on the UAV, then run it, then conduct ground truthing. Then you try to see which pest is possible to detect, which is not possible to detect.
Right.
And again, the sensor, whether it's multispectral, hyperspectral, all these things are there, depending on our budget, money.
Yeah. And that Krishna Reddy, please, sir, as a I requested.
Dr. Prabhakar.
Sir, good afternoon, sir.
Dr. Prabhakar, I wanted to know what is the accuracy you are getting when ground data to spectral data?
Sir, in our satellite, because most of our studies are on satellite basis. Satellite, in the examples what I shown you, groundnut leaf folder or groundnut leaf miner, leaf folder in rice, cotton mealybug. There is a mostly major crop, and there is only one pest. There's no multiple pests. So in those cases, our accuracies were more than 68%, 68 to 70% maximum.
Because that is the, see, other day I was listening to the VC of Agriculture University, Telangana. He was mentioning accuracy 85%. They are doing for rice varieties.
No, sir, maybe that's drone-based applications, maybe.
No, they are both used drone as well as remote sensing. I think that is what I wanted to add. One more point, what you were mentioning.
Sir.
Drone application has much wider usage compared to remote sensing. Our side, crop protection. See, crop protection is not entire geographic, large areas is not required. Say you cover 5 acres land, that drone can do much faster and higher specificity compared to the remote sensing. That is what my feeling.
No, you are correct, sir. You are absolutely correct. If you have a drone, if you have a sensor, you fly it, acquire the data, and we can provide. But if it is for the entire village or the block, then you have to fly the drone several times or acquire satellite data.
And also drones now, I think in Andhra I have seen they have given some license to some private agencies in association with Agriculture University.
Sir, you are correct.
Collaborative programs they are doing.
Yes.
Especially spraying, they are conducting trials and spraying for farmers' fields.
Correct, sir. You are correct. That's what the spraying. There's not much remote sensing. It's only you are spraying the insecticides without assuming that the entire field is infested uniformly. Whereas in precision agriculture, that means in the future, first you have to acquire the image and classify the field based on the severity, and then go for spraying wherever it's required within the field. So that's next level of application.
And last, my question is you have shown some viral diseases, but
Yes, sir.
what happens in viruses depending on the infection level and the time period and the host genotype, the color variation will be vary.
Okay.
Whether we are able to fine tune that spectral difference in that extent.
Yes, sir. Very much, because if it is giving a symptom on the leaf, reduction on chlorophyll or any other pigment.
No, that in one time it will show one type of symptom. After a few days, it will change another symptoms.
Correct. If it is change in color, yeah, it's possible, sir. You can do it. If it's going from yellow to red, there will be separate bands to identify the red color region in the spectral band. It's all in the visible region only, not even shortwave infrared. For viruses, you might have seen one of the slides. And only visible region, for different colors, you have different bands. So that,
Okay. Thank you, sir. There is a question from Dr. Kalaivannan through chat box. How to differentiate the plants affected by pest, disease, and nutrient deficiencies using remote sensing and GIS?
Yeah.
Is there any variation with spectral signatures?
Yeah, that's what I said in the beginning. You have to characterize the reflectance spectra using your radiometer, ground truth. But if you don't have the ground truth, if you don't have a characterized spectra for whatever it is, deficiency symptom or particular disease on a crop, you cannot interpret. It's not possible. Secondly, there are another way of doing it. It not be very accurate based on the spatial distribution. Like there is a separate algorithm for it. When you acquire a satellite image, how the damage symptoms are distributed within the frame. If it is a drought, there will be uniform damage, isn't it? It is a drought, moisture stress. If it is a certain kind of pest based on its distribution, there will be aggregated. So you can find out if it is not due to moisture stress, if it is maybe due to some pests or diseases. But everything has to be verified through ground truth.
Okay, thank you. Any next question, please?
Good evening, Dr. Prabhakar. Thanks very much for your nice presentation on the remote sensing and GIS applications in crop pest management. I am Dr. S. Doraiswamy from Agriculture College, TNA, Thiruvannamalai.
Yes, sir.
My question is, of late, the farmers, they are using the UAV, that is drone for taking a pesticide spray in crops. So by using the private agencies. So I have seen one example in a practical applications, the nearby Thiruvannamalai. They have taken up spraying the use of insecticide combination, imidacloprid and other insecticide for the management of sugarcane leaf hopper, Pyrrhilla perpusilla. So in 6 months old crop. But what happened now? There was no control after spraying with the drone. The farmers were satisfied. That is, immediately with a shorter period of time, their spraying was completed. Money was paid, but the control was not proper. So there should be some regulation with regard to the usage of the drones for the spraying pesticides. Still, we don't have a separate formulation for the drone spray.
You are right, sir. Exactly, you are telling the same thing.
But the farmers are being now, in practical speaking, they're being cheated, I think, in my words. Is it so?
You are correct, sir. Whatever formulations that has been marketed, available in the market, they are not meant for drone-based applications.
Yeah.
Because there you are reducing the quantity of water, spray fluid, almost by 30 or 40 levels. 250, you are bringing it to 10 to 15 liters.
Okay.
So same amount of active ingredient mixed in 15 liters, whether the spread, the entire field, and the covering the entire canopy, that's also important. Depends on the mode of action of the insecticide sometimes.
Right.
If it is a contact insecticides, only it will cover the upper part of the leaf.
Yeah.
It will never enter because it sprays from the top. So that's another.
And also the height of the spraying, no? Sure, 6 months old means is somewhat reasonable height only. But even though they can spraying with the systemic insecticide only.
But that has to be tested. Like farmers may be using just for, but there is no research. Research wise, it has not been done much. In other countries, they have a separate formulations for UAVs. We don't have such kind of formulations.
Even for using in a drip system also, no, we don't have separate formulation.
So that's wrong actually. It's not.
We are using the drip fertigation, water soluble fertilizers are available. But of late, the farmers are using the through drip system also. They are giving fipronil, imidacloprid and chlorpyrifos through drip system, no. So we don't have separate population for a drip system also.
So what all you're telling us, they are part of now this SOP which is circulated, standard operative procedure. They are addressing these issues. Ministry is aware of it. They are working on it.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Okay, thank you, sir. Next, those who want to ask questions, kindly raise your hand so that one by one you can interact with the speaker. Anybody else? That Prasanna, I think you worked on remote sensing for our PhD.
Yeah, I have no questions because sir has already answered for the many of the questions which are already been raised. So only in this remote sensing, previously the apprehensions were the larger area. So that is one of the most limiting factor. One has to take up a crop in a very wider area, then the satellite imaging, whatever is there, it is possible. Now when we speak about the drones, if you use hyperspectra instead of multispectra with the drones, that is far better, and even in a small patches also we can use this. Another main application is the insurance, what it is coming up by the government now, the area of extent of damage. So these type of technologies can be extrapolated for insurance schemes. So only thing is that digital image processing, it requires a lot of skills. It is not just easy. So the false color composite, so that is very much important here. And before that, identification of the sensitive wavelengths, whether it is a moisture stress or a nutrient stress. In each nutrients have different type of symptoms we get. So then whether disease, as disease progresses, the crop shows different type of color and different pigments, not just a chlorophyll, even xanthophylls, mesophylls. So a lot of information is hidden in visible region. That has to be only possible if you properly identify using the hyperspectral remote sensing, because every band will contain some information in the hyperspectra. So in multispectra, there will be a merging of 2, 3, 4 bands there, where we don't get accuracy that much using a multispectra. This hyperspectra is a better. Only thing is the soil scientist, pathologist and entomologist together has to bring the sensitive valence for each and every pest, diseases and the nutrients. So then it is possible.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for sharing your ideas. Anybody else? Kindly unmute yourself and you can ask your questions or share your experiences. That Prabhakar, presently these government agencies, are they using this remote sensing for claiming insurances, crop loss insurances?
Yes. Government of Maharashtra, they have deployed last year. We have attended some of the meetings. They are using drones for crop health assessment, particularly for drought. They are using it. Final report, we are not aware. One of the meetings, they are using it for mainly for claiming the insurance.
Okay.
Yeah, that is already going on, but not for pest and disease damage. And the second application, which is very much required and in using drones, is during extreme weather events. If there is a cyclone or there is a hailstorm, the assessment, because government wanted the assessment to be done individual farmer wise, field wise, within a short time. Then in that case, the drones is the only option, because satellite data will not be available. It's a cloudy days, either aircraft or satellite, sorry, drones. Aircraft, it is in India, we don't have that kind of facilities or that kind of initiative is not there. So we can forget about using aircrafts for remote sensing. Drones, yes, it's now upcoming. There is a possibility.
Okay, right. Now, anybody else? Otherwise, I feel everybody is satisfied with, everybody has learned definitely something about remote sensing. I thank Dr. Prabhakar profusely for accepting and giving a wonderful lecture on remote sensing. With this, I thank all the participants who joined in 127th talk by Dr. Prabhakar. Next month, we will be meeting with a new topic with another speaker. Till that time, I thank one and all, and happy stay and healthy stay. Thank you.
Thank you, Sridhar. Thank you, IHR, for this opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Right.